lecture series on complex analysis. Today's topic is complex integration. We had learned integration in real analysis. We do know that integration, by integration we mean it is the inverse process of differentiation. We have learned definite integrals also in the real one. Let us just go with the complex variables and complex functions. What do we mean by complex integration? So, let us first consider the complex valued function on real domain, that is, let us say f is a function from D to C, where D is a subset of R. More precisely, your D would be an interval from A to B and C is the complex plane. Then we can say, because it is a complex valued function, that we can say f of t is u of t plus I of times v of t for t belonging to A to B, interval A B. What does it mean? It simply says that your function f t, it is complex valued, that is, we could write it as in the two parts, one is the real part, another is the imaginary part. So, we do have two functions, one is u t, this is a real function, v t, this is also a real function. So, we are, and t is the real number, that is, it is in the real domain. Now, on this, if I try to define the complex integral, just like as the differentiation in the for the complex valued functions we have defined, we can define it the integral of separate parts of the real parts and then combine it. So, the definite integral we could define as integral a to b f t dt as the integral a to b u t dt plus I times a to b v t dt. That is what we are having is, that is, if my functions u t and v t are such that these are the real valued function on the real domain. So, if these functions are such that these definite integrals are existing, that simply says is that these functions has to be continuous on this range t belonging to the interval a to b, then this integral does exist. Since this integral exists and this integral exists, this is the complex integral. So, what we are having is, this is nothing but we are defining same as in the terms of real definite integrals. Let us just do one example over here. Suppose my f t is t square plus 1 plus I times t cube in the range 0 to 1. I have to integrate this on the whole range. So, what we do have, this function does has the two parts, one is the real part, another is the imaginary part, or rather you could say is, that is, we are having two functions, u t is t square plus 1 and v t is t cube in the interval defined on 0 to 1. So, the interval 0 to 1 f t dt, f t is my t square plus 1 plus I t cube dt. So, now we could write it out the two integrals 0 to 1 t square plus 1 dt and I times 0 to 1 t cube dt. This integral we do know is nothing but t cube by 3. So, integrated over here 1 by 3 plus 1, that is integral is t. So, it would be 1. Similarly, t cube, its integral 0 to 1 is t to the power 4 divided by 4 and evaluated from 0 to 1 should give me 1 by 4. So, what we are getting is from here 1 by 3 plus 1, that is 4 by 3 plus I times 1 by 4, that is the integral of this complex valued function is again a complex number. Similarly, let us take another example. F t is e to the power I 2 t in the interval 0 to pi by 6. T is real value, real numbers in the interval 0 to pi by 6. Function is e to the power I 2 t. Now, either I write it out as I 2 t is, I could write it as cos 2 t plus I sin 2 t, that is, now integral we are breaking into the two parts, u t is my cos 2 t and v t is my sin 2 t. Both sin 2 t and cos 2 t, they are real functions. So, I integrate it over 0 to pi by 6. Integral of cos 2t dt we do know is would be 1 by 2 times sin 2t, and the integral of sin 2t is minus 1 by 2 times cos 2t, evaluated from 0 to pi by 6. Here what we have got 1 by 2 times sin 2t. At t is equal to 0, sin is 0. At t is equal to pi by 6, cos sin pi by 3 is root 3 by 2, and 1 by 2 was there. Similarly, here when we get half cosine 2t, at t is equal to 0 we would get it 1. So, it is 1 by 4, and at pi by 6 that is cosine pi by 3, that is 1 by 2. So, we are getting it as simply 1 by 4. So, we have got this integral as square root 3 by 4 plus I times 1 by 4, again a complex number. Now, what we have defined the complex definite integral here on the real domain, that is my function is complex valued, but it is defined on the real domain. So, since it is defined on the real domain, I can break it into two integrals on the real analysis or in the real domain on the real line, and so all the properties which we do know about the definite integrals, they should satisfy over here precisely. If f is I am breaking as ut plus ivt and gt is as pt plus iqt for any range interval t belonging to a to b, then we do know that the properties of sum of functions, that is a to b f t plus g t dt, should nothing be the sum of the integrals, that is integral a to b f t dt plus integral a to b g t dt. Moreover, if this interval a to b, if I can divide it interval, this interval at the point C such that my interval a b can be written as a to c and then c to b, my integral can be divided into two ones, that is a to b f t dt can be given as a to b a to c f t dt plus c to b f t dt. Now, all these properties you can check, you have to, what you have to do is you have to prove, you can prove it by putting your f as u plus iv and g as p plus iq. So, if I am keeping here f as u plus iv and g as p plus iq, we do know the sum of complex numbers. What we are having is for a fixed t, ut and vt and ut plus ivt is a complex number. So, we can use the all the properties are all the sum formulas for the complex numbers. So, what we would get? We get here u plus p plus I times v plus q. So, what we would get is, that is we would get one integral, two real integrals, one integral for u plus p, another integral for v plus q. U plus v, u plus p, this integral using the real real definite integrals property, we can write it as integral of ut plus integral of pt. Similarly, integral of v plus q we could write as integral of vt plus integral of qt, and that would give me, that is again summarize again collecting the terms, we could write them as this one. Similarly, here if we do break, we have to write it u plus iv, and then each one, because u is real function, v is real function, again using the properties of definite integrals on the real functions, we could just get this solution as well. So, we can prove these properties very easily. Then the sense reversal, or you could say is, that is if the interval from a to b I change it to the interval b to a, then as there in the real one we were having that integral a to b f t dt should be same as minus of b to a f t dt. Again we can show it using just u plus v. Moreover, the product rule. Now, if my f and g, as I have defined earlier, that f is u plus iv and g is p plus iq, then what should be this integral of f t g t dt, that is the product one. Of course, how could we find it out? We just substitute the value of this functions f and g, u plus iv and p plus iq. Now, use the product of the complex numbers, what we would get, u into p minus v into q. So, we would get u into p minus v into q and I times v p and u q, this is with the plus sign. So, now what we are getting is, actually we are getting this multiplication as u p minus v q plus I times v p plus u q. So, we are getting is two functions again, because u is a real function, p is real function, v is real function, q is real function. So, all these are real functions, similarly all these are real functions. So, I can write it as the integral, by the definition, integral a to b u p minus v q dt plus I times a to b v p plus u q dt. Now, you see is that is I am just leaving this part, that is function evaluated at the point t, just for the writing space. This is actually the function of t, u, p, v, q all are the function of t, that is why it has been integrated with respect to t. There is a standard type of writing. So, what we are getting is, this is again a complex number, because this is integral of real functions, and here we can use the product rule of, again we can use it as integral a to b u p dt minus integral a to b v q dt, and then for the product rule u p dt we do know that is how to evaluate the product and the real ones. Moreover, we do have one more property which says the real part of a to b f t dt is same as integral a to b of real part of f t dt. How? If you do remember our definition of definite integral in the complex valued function, we have defined integral a to b f t dt as integral of u t with respect to t in the range a to b plus I times integral of v with respect to t in the range a to b. You could see here also, that is, if I replace this by u and this replaced by v. Then what is the real part of this one? We do get is the real part in the examples we have got, that is, all the time we have got the integrals as a complex number, and you can check in those all those examples, or you can do some more examples as well to find it out, that the real part of this one. So, by definition it is very clear from that, that is real part of integral a to b f t dt would be nothing but the integral of u t with respect to t from in the range a to b. And what is u t? U t, if I see by the definition, f is u plus I v. So, u is nothing but the real part of f t, that is what we are seeing. So, this is very simple, just from the definition we are getting, and you can verify with any examples. Then we do have one more property which is coming from the complex, involving something as complex number. If I do have a complex constant z naught as x naught plus y naught, that is x naught and y naught all are constant, then integral a to b z naught f t dt, we could write it at z naught as x naught plus I y naught and f as u plus I v. Now, again use the multiplication of the complex numbers at f x point t, we get x naught u minus y naught v plus I times y naught u plus x naught v. So, that is what we have got, integral a to b x naught u minus y naught v dt plus I times integral a to b y naught u plus x naught v dt. Now, if I take this x naught is here the first term, x naught u dt integral a to b, and from here if I take the second term, integral a to b x naught v dt, this is with I time. Now, from these two, if I take these two integral, if I take and I treat this imaginary number I square root of minus 1 as a constant, then what I get, using the properties of the real definite integrals, we do get it that it would be nothing but x naught times integral a to b u dt plus I times integral a to b v dt. And similarly, if I take the second term over here minus y naught v and first term over here plus I times y naught u. Now, y naught I am taking common, Moreover, I am taking I also outside. If I am taking I outside, that says is here I have to multiply with the plus I, because it is a minus 1. So, what I would get it I times y naught I am taking out, and I would get from here u plus I v. So, again what we are getting is that, again if you just simplify the terms, you do get it should be x naught plus I y naught times integral a to b u t dt plus I times a to b v t dt. That says this is x plus I y naught, this is nothing but the z naught, and this is nothing but the integral of f t in the range a to b with respect to t. So, what we have got that if there is a complex constant in the integral, we can take that complex constant outside the integral sign. As we are taking the real constant outside the integral sign, in the similar manner the complex constant can be taken outside the integral sign. Then there is one basic property of the integral, that is what we are calling as absolute value of the integral. Now, let us suppose my a is less than b, the interval. So, integral a to b f t dt, we do know this is a complex valued function. So, this integral comes as a complex number. Now, let us write that complex number in this form r naught e to the power I theta naught, where r naught is your modulus and theta naught is the argument. So, if I do write this one, now from here if I rewrite it, I am writing r naught e to the power I theta naught is equal to a to b f t dt. Now, from here I want what is the modulus, because absolute value of the integral we are saying is the absolute value when we are talking about on the real valued functions or real numbers, then absolute value simply says is that without the sign or that removing the sign of the value. But in the complex number we do know that the absolute value means its modulus. So, here the absolute value simply says is the modulus. So, in that form the modulus is r naught. We want to find out what is this r naught. E to the power I theta naught, this is constant. So, I can rewrite it as e to the power minus I theta naught times a to b integral f t dt. Just now we have done the property which says is that the constant can be taken outside the integral. So, this constant can be taken inside this integral. So, if I am taking like this one, I would get e to this as a to b e to the power minus I theta naught f t dt. Now, my f is u plus I v t. What we are having from here, we have got that r naught is equal to a to b e to the power minus I theta naught f t dt. Now, r naught is the modulus of the complex number r naught e to the power I theta naught, that says r naught is real. Now, if this is real, what we are getting that this integral is actually real number. So, now if I am taking both the side the real part of this one, we have done one more property which said is real part of integral f t dt is same as integral of real part of f t dt. So, taking the real part on both the sides, what I do get from the left hand side r naught is real itself. So, real part of r naught is the r naught itself. From the right hand side, the real part of integral a to b this function e to the power minus I theta naught f t dt, that with the property just now we have done, we could write it as it is integral a to b real part of e to the power minus I theta naught f t dt. That says is, now find out what is the real part of e to the power minus I theta naught f t. F t is u plus I v. So, if I am writing it out, my e to the power minus I theta naught, this should always be whatever be this real part of any complex number, that should always be less than or equal to the modulus of this one. Real part of this means is, if I just give you one reminder, that suppose my number is complex number is x plus I y, then the real part of x plus I y, z is equal to x plus I y would be x, and what will be the modulus of x plus I y? That would be square root of x square plus y square. We do know that whatever be this y, the minimum value it could take is 0, because y square we are having in the modulus square root of x square plus y square. So, that will always be smaller than square root of x square plus y square. So, we are just using this property. What it says is, from here, now in the multiplication we do know that the modulus of z1 z2 is equal to modulus of z1 into modulus of z2. So, we are just using that property, it is same as modulus of e to the power minus I theta naught into modulus of f t. Now, if I just simplify that, that is, if we just substitute for this one as this, so what I would get r naught and e to the power, the modulus of e to the power minus I theta naught, that would be 1, because I theta naught, e to the power minus I theta naught is nothing but cos theta naught minus I sin theta naught, and its modulus is always 1, because the modulus part, r naught part we have taken already out. So, that way also you can understand that it is 1. So, what I have got now from here, that the real part of this is less than or equal to modulus of f t. Now, substitute it over here, that says r naught, which is equal to this, is less than or equal to integral a to b mod of f t dt. Since this part is less than or equal to f t dt, so we do get this integral should also be the same way. Now, what is r naught? R naught is nothing but the modulus of this integral. So, what we have got, that modulus of integral a to b f t dt is always less than or equal to the integral of the modulus of f t dt. This is what is called the absolute value of the integral, or this is what you are having this inequality. This is the basic property of integral. Now, till now we have done this complex valued function defined on a real interval and the definite integral. In the similar manner, we can define the improper integrals as well, that is where we are not having the completely, that is d is a subset of, or it is not necessarily going to be an interval which is on a finite length. It may be from a to infinity, or it may be from minus infinity to plus infinity, or we do not have any limits, that is we are talking about improper integral. Again, if we are saying is that is a complex valued function, it is varying to the c. So, we do have as f as u plus I v t for t belonging to r. So, we can define this improper integral, that is just integral f t dt as integral u to dt plus I times integral v t dt. Can we define? The question comes here is, can we define? If we see this, we are saying is this integral equal to this integral plus I times this integral. Now, this would be existing, or this would be there if right hand side integrals are there. So, what we say, if I do have a complex valued function such that if I can break it into real and imaginary part, and that you have already learned that we can always break any complex valued function into the real part and imaginary part, where we do say as imaginary part is I times a real part. So, if my these two functions, these two real functions u and v are such that these two improper integrals does exist, then this integral will always exist. Now, if you do remember from the real analysis, what are the conditions for existence of this improper integrals? That simply says is that these functions must be continuous. Moreover, if you do remember your integral calculus from the real analysis part, you do know that if you do have antiderivatives of these functions u and v, then this integral does exist. So, that what does it simply says that if you do have any functions, say capital U and capital V, such that the derivative of capital U is small u and capital V is small v, then we can say that these integrals can be written, or these integral does exist, and in that case this will also exist what it says. So, we are just giving here as a definition that this integral does exist provided the right hand side integrals exist, and that we do have come across that this my ut and vt has to be continuous. All the properties of real integrals hold true here also. That is, in the improper integrals, whatever the properties in the real integrals we do have, all those properties should hold true over here. Even the basic property of your absolute value, that should also hold true over here, even if I do not have this a to b, rather than if I do have a to infinity, this property also holds true. Now, this I am leaving as an exercise for you to verify all these properties and find out, that is, how much significance you do have. So, what we have done till now, we have done, that is, from the improper integral, that is what I said is that if antiderivative, or that is whatever you have learned the first integral calculus. Now, from improper integral, can we evaluate the definite integral? If you do remember, we have done in the real analysis this part, that is how do we had learned the definite integrals. First we had learned that definite integral, that if I do have any function f whose antiderivative is capital F, then we simply said is integral of f t dt is capital F t, and if I could put the limits on t, that is from a to b or so, we said is that is we evaluate the function capital F t from a to b. That way once we have learned the definite integrals, that is using the limits. Now, let us see, that is what we are saying is, can we move from here also in the improper integral to definite integral. So, let us say we do have for both the functions ut and vt, the antiderivatives are existing, that is there are some function capital U and capital V such that the derivative of capital U is small u and derivative of capital V is small v. What are this u and v? They are actually the real and imaginary part of the function f t. So, where function f t is ut plus I v t for t belonging to R. Now, till now you have learned this complex differentiation, from there you can learn that if ut plus I v t is this function, we do know that capital U t plus I times capital V t, if I do write, that function's derivative would be u t plus I v t, that you have already learned. Now, we are going to use this one. If this is happening, then we do know from the real analysis, then integral of ut dt should be capital U t and integral of v t dt should be capital V t. Hence, integral of f t dt, which is integral of ut dt plus I times v t dt, just now we have defined, should be capital U t plus capital V t I times, that is the imaginary part. Now, so if I try to use this definite integral a to b f t dt, I should write it as integral a to b ut dt plus I times integral a to b v t dt. Since integral ut dt is capital U t, so I just write it as capital U t, and this integral of small v t, that is capital V t. So, we just get it capital V t, evaluate it from a to b. What we do get? This u b minus u a plus I times v b minus v a. Let me write it out as u b plus I v b. Let me write it out capital F b, and remaining part is capital F a. So, what we are saying is, now f t, the function I am defining, is capital U t plus I v t. We do know very well from the differentiation of the complex form that actually the derivative of capital F t is small f t. So, what we are saying is, if antiderivative of the real and imaginary part, that is both are the real functions. So, if the antiderivative for them is existing, we can evaluate these integrals using this antiderivatives. So, like let us say do one example here. Integrate the function 1 plus I t square from 0 to 1. That is what we have to do is, we have to, now we are going to find out this definition, we have to evaluate actually the integral 0 to 1 plus I t square with respect to t. So, what we are going to do here is, rather than finding it out separately this one, we just try to find out, is there any antiderivative for this function does exist, because complex differentiation we had already done. Now, let us use this function f t. capital F t as t plus I times t cube by 3. Now, let us see what is its derivative. Its derivative with respect to t would be 1 plus I times t square, because the derivative of t cube is 3 t square. So, 3 t square upon 3, that is t square. So, I have got this function. You do know that is how we are finding it out, that is the formulas we are knowing. So, f dash t is actually f t. So, what we say is that is now evaluation of this integral 0 to 1 plus I t square dt, we are not going to do it separately as the real integrals. We will do it directly as the complex integral using this antiderivative, that is antiderivative we had to find it out this one. So, we say we write this antiderivative t plus I times t cube by 3 from 0 to 1. Now, evaluation from 0 to 1, that is at 1 what I would get 1 plus I by 3, and at 0 it is 0. So, we have got it 1 plus I by 3. So, this is we are evaluating the definite integral using the antiderivative. So, if the antiderivatives we are knowing for certain functions that is existing, we can use this also to evaluate the definite integrals. So, till now what we have done is that is simple extension of the real integrals or real analysis. We have taken these two real functions and induced one imaginary number, or you could say just the I, and said is that this is the complex integral. Of course, there is not much fun, it is a simple extension. Now, let us come to the complex function on complex domain. That says is now what we are having is a function from C to C. So, my domain is also C. Domain is complex plane, that is now we have moved from the line to the plane. Now, in this one it says is if on the line, if I have to move from one point to the other point, that is from A to B, there is only single direction, because that was, if you see is this is the line, real line. So, if I have to move from A to B, there is only one way in which I have to move A to B, or I could move from B to A, that is, but that is moving from B to A. From moving A to B, I have only one way. Now, here if I do have 2 points A and B, two complex numbers A and B, say A and B, then how can I move from A to B? Either I can move with a straight line, that is from A to B, or I can say is from first I am moving from A to this part, that is this is the x and this is the y, that x plus I y, that is what the z we are having, and then from this point to this point. So, what we are having is now these 2 points we do have, or we can move from A to B in this manner, let us say from here I have gone just like this one, or I can have any path like this one. That says is moving from A to B in a complex plane where A and B are two complex numbers, I do have many ways in which I can reach from one point to the another point, because now I am talking about the plane. So, finding out a definite integral of a complex valued function on the complex domain, that says I am interested in finding out the integral A to B f z dz. So, whether I should integrate from here to here, whether I should integrate like this one, or whether I should integrate in this manner, and is these paths which in which I am moving from A to B, does they affect the evaluation of integral, or it is just immaterial whether I am moving from this path or this path, I should just reach in any manner from A to B. That says is we have to first explore that, or rather first we will try to find out the complex integral of complex function in the complex domain as according to the path, and then we will check the properties whether it is affecting, the path is affecting the value of the integral for any function or not. So, what we are saying is the integral of complex valued function of complex variable are defined on the curves in complex plane. So, first thing is what is these curves, how these curves are going to signify, how we are going to evaluate. So, of course, what we would like to do is we would like to take these curves in the parametric form. That is, we just take one parameter. Say for example, if I have to reach from A to B in this manner, that is this big dashed line, what I would do, first I will move from A to this point, say this point C, in the direction of x axis, and then we move in the direction of y axis. So, what we would say is that is we are reaching, we are first we can make it, because we at one time we are having only one direction, or if I am moving here, we are taking the direction of this straight line from A to B, or if I am moving in this one, I am taking the direction of this path. This is also one line, whatever this curve. So, we want that this parameter for this curve, whether this may be the straight lines or maybe any curved ones, that we are calling as a parametric one. So, we want to define the curves in the parametric form. Let us just call these ways to reach to from A to B as the paths. So, their paths are arcs and curves. So, an arc C in the complex plane Z is the set of points x, y, such that we want to define it in parametric form, that x is x of t and y is y of t for t lying between A and B on any real number. The equation of arc, so in this manner what we do get z as z of t, and what we do give z as, since it is we are saying is the points x, y, that means each z point is actually x plus I y in the form of complex plane, that is how we are writing it out. So, that says is for a given value of t, my z t should be x t plus I y t. That says is now the equation of arc we are getting in single parameter t ranging from A to B, and this functions x and y we are getting according to that arc, that is whatever this set x and y that we want in the form of single parameter t. Let us just talk about the some classification of these arcs. We call an arc to be simple if it does not crosses itself at any point except at possibly at the initial point. So, let us first see, this is a simple curve, it is starting from A reaching to the B, it is at none of the point time it is not crossing it, none of the point this arc is crossing itself. Let us say these are the 2 points T1 and T2 and this one. So, what we want this parameter T, so that we do say is this interval. So, we could say is that the interval T1 to T2 we are just trying to say is that is from here to here, T is equal to A to B, like rather than this points A and B which are the complex numbers here as I have defined earlier. Now, I can treat this A and B as the real numbers, that is these real numbers I can signify with this x axis or I can signify with the y axis, depending upon what kind of the equation of the curve or what kind of the curve I am having, that we will explain little later. So, this arc which is not crossing itself at any point and my initial point and the ending points are different, this is called a simple arc, or this is also known as Jordan arc. As I said is except possibly at the initial points A and B they may be same, that is it may be of this form, that is starting from A, it is reaching to this one and moving in this manner. It says is that is I am having as elliptic kind of curve which is orientation, this orientation has to be defined, because here when I am saying is the same point is both A and B, then orientation has to be defined, that is from which direction we are moving. This oriented, this is called the closed curve, that is simple closed curve, because it is not crossing itself at any point. This is called the simple closed curve, or it is also other name is Jordan curve. Let us take an example of not simple arc. So, you see here we are starting from A and this way we are taking, this is crossing itself at this point. So, this is not a simple curve. Similarly, we could have, if I would have added it up to here, that is closed it one, this would have been a not simple arc. So, we do have is, that is the classification of the arcs, that is rather we have defined simple and not simple, and in the simple we have taken the closed curves, closed arcs also, that we call the curve. So, we have arc, we have curve, simple arc, simple curve, and we are not talking about this kind of or many other kind of arcs or curves. From here, let us see that is how this parameterization we do get. So, let us see first example. We do have in this arc two lines, one is from 0 to 1 plus I, another is from 1 plus I to 2 plus I. We want the parameterization of this, we want the equation for this curve, how we can write in the parametric form. We see the first line is from, this is in the complex plane, that is xy plane. So, this point if I treat it as a 2 dimensional plane, it would be 0 0. This point we could treat as 1 1. So, we are reaching from 0 0 to 1 1. That says is that this is a straight line with 45 degree inclination. The equation of this line is y is equal to x. So, both the y is equal to x, either I can treat x as parameter or let us treat t parameter, then y and x both are same as that parameter t. And from here to here 1 plus I to 2 plus I. So, in the place 0 to 1 plus I, what we have got, both x as t and y as t, that is, or you could say is actually t from 0 to 1. Then from 1 plus I to 2 plus I, if I try to reach from this x or the t parameter, so it is from 1 to 2. In the 1 to 2, this line is straightforward moving in the same direction as the direction of x or the direction of t. That is the other part, y part has been kept. So, let us see that is how can we write it out. We can write for this part 0 to 1 t plus I t, because what we are having is x is t, y is t, and the form we can write x plus I y. So, x t is t, y t is t. So, x t plus I t in the range 0 to 1, t is varying from 0 to 1. Then when t is varying from 1 to 2, what we have got? We have got only this t variable is varying, but the y is not varying. So, what we do get, y is fixed at 1. So, we have got t plus I for 1 to 2. Similarly, let us take another example. This is the unit circle. Now, this unit circle we can write in the parametric form by this equation e to the power I t 0 to 2 pi. So, what we are having is, unit circle means my radius is 1, and if I take the parameter t as the angle which any point over here, at this point if I do take any particular point over here, this point, if I draw the line from this point, the angle which this line or this radius would be making with the x axis, that angle I am taking is theta. So, if I take this orientation anti-clockwise, if I take the orientation anti-clockwise, then my t should range from 0 to 2 pi, that is angle of radius with x axis, that would be ranging from 0 to 2 pi, and this is what is my parametric form of the unit circle oriented anti-clockwise. Now, if I generalize it, that is, I take a circle with radius r and center z naught. So, this center z naught, this is the radius r, it is oriented anti-clockwise. What would be this equation of this one? In the similar manner, here we have got that it is e to the power I t. Now, what I am having is the radius is r, here the radius was 1. So, I just have the radius as r. So, now if I do take how we are moving, this point, if I do see, if we just go with the polar coordinates, let us say what would be, it would be r theta. What is the theta? Theta is the angle the x axis is making from this point r. So, if I take r theta, we do know the complex number, I can write as r e to the power I theta naught I theta, where theta is the angle which it is making with the x axis and r is the modulus, that is the direct distance from the point to, from origin to that point. Now, origin I have shifted from 0 to this point z naught. So, what we do get is z naught plus r e to the power I t, as t is ranging from 0 to 2 pi. So, these are some examples in which these arcs and curves we can present in the parametric form. Now, come to another thing. If I do have my this curve or arc z t as x t plus I y t is such that this function x and y, both these functions are continuous and differentiable. That says is I can get the derivative of z dash t as x dash t plus I y dash t in the range a to b. Then we call this arc to be differentiable arc. That is, if for any arc I do have this presentation x t plus I y t such that both these functions x t and y t, they are continuous and differentiable in the whole range for t a to b, then these arcs are called differentiable arcs. Moreover, if I do have that this x dash and y dash are also continuous, what it says is that the modulus of z dash t is nothing but x dash t whole square plus y dash t whole square, if they are also continuous. This function is also a continuous function. So, we say is that this is an integrable function on a to b by the properties of integral, because this is a real number. So, we do have is that is a real function would be integrable if it is continuous on the real line, on the interval we do call it, it is integrable. If it is integrable, then the length of an arc from a to b we are defining as integral a to b modulus of z dash t dt. From here what we are getting is that is, so this is one term which we would be actually using in the next few walks. So, I am just introducing here you the length of arc. This length of arc is independent of parameterization. What does it mean? That says is that is either I use this parameterization t or I use the any other parameterization tau. If I use any other parameterization tau, that says is my arc which is we are giving here by the equation z is equal to z t, that could be given as z is equal to say some phi of tau. And what is that tau? Tau we are saying is that is t is a function of tau. So, let us say t is a function of psi of tau. So, if I just substitute all this z dash and all those things, you can check it by yourself that finally your L would come as that phi dash of tau d tau in the interval say alpha to beta, because if you are mapping, that is what I am saying is that is if rather than having this presentation z is equal to z t in the interval a to b, if you do have any other presentation that z as say some phi of tau, where tau is ranging from say alpha to beta, again tau is a real number and alpha and beta are real number, even then your this length would remain same. That says is it is independent of parameterization. So, as I have told you, that is if you take let us say t is a psi of tau and then use this all this differentiation and change of the variable, and you will find it out that you would be reaching to the same point. Now, the differentiable arc, let us say we do have differentiable arcs. Differentiable arcs means I do have an arc z is equal to z t. So, when I am talking about the arc, of course, the curves are included in is x t plus I v t such that x and y both are continuously differentiable functions. Moreover, if the derivative of z is not 0 on whole interval. So, if it is a differentiable arc, that is my x and y are continuously differentiable functions. Moreover, none of them are 0, or rather you could say z t total z dash t is not 0 for any t in the whole interval a to b. Then we call, in that case we can get the unit tangent vector of this arc z as z dash t divided by modulus of z dash t, and the direction, or that is the angle of this tangent, would be nothing but the argument of z dash t. Now, let us define one more classification of the arc, that is called the smooth arc. And differentiable arc z t is called smooth if z t dash t is continuous and z dash t is not 0 for all t in the interval a to b. So, we are saying is that in that case actually what will happen, that is the length of the arc we can define actually. So, this we are calling is smooth arc. So, what we have learned today, the complex integration. First we tried the complex valued function on the real domain, and there we learned that is it is similar to whatever we have learned in the real analysis as the integration. All the properties over there were holding true, and we can modify it to hold true for the complex valued function on the real domain itself. Then the problem we find it out that if I just try to make it the complex valued function on the complex variable, that is now we are not on the real line, now we are in the complex plane. There if I try to define the first thing, that is definite integral, we find it out that we can move from one point to another point in many different paths. So, before reaching to the moving to the complex integral of the complex valued function of the complex variable, first we have to learn little bit about those basics, that is how can we evaluate. So, before giving the definition we have to learn certain terms, and those terms we had learned in the terms of paths, and for the paths we had classified arcs, simple arcs and smooth arc. Next we would learn little bit more, and then we will move to the complex valued functions of complex variable. That is all for today's lecture. Thank you.